I don't want to use the term hold its speed really well. Yes, it is a beautiful 89-degree summer day here in Chicagoland. We are currently on Montrose Harbor, just north of downtown area, as you can see all the way in the distance. Absolutely beautiful day. This is why I endure the harsh winters of Chicago, in order to enjoy summertime shy, as you guys always know. And also, we just had Puerto Rican Day parade here in Chicago. So shout out to all my Puerto Ricans, my Bawiquas, where y'all at? Wepa! But anyway, in today's video, guys, I wanted to do a follow-up video on my Elite Wheels VELO 6 wheel set, as you guys can see right here, because now that I've been riding these wheels for about 6 months or so now, I do have some thoughts on these wheels, and my thoughts are a little bit surprising and almost even counterintuitive to how I thought these wheels were going to be. So in this video, of course, we're going to talk about some of the specs on these wheels, go over some of the details as well, and of course I'm going to give you my thoughts on what I think about these wheels 6 months in. So without further ado, let's begin. One thing I forgot to mention in the introductory of this video is, by the time this video drops, I should have a discount code for you guys on these wheels. I believe when this video drops, Elite Wheels will have a summer sale going on all of their wheel sets, but I should have a special code for you, which I'll be sure to drop in the description down below, that should offer up a discount a little bit more than the summer sale that Elite Wheels is offering. So as I mentioned in the introduction of this video, guys, these are my Elite Wheels VELO 6 wheels. These don't really need any sort of introduction, as you can see based on the design of these wheels. We have, it's a monocoque design. You have these very thick 6-bladed carbon spokes. So this whole entire design is one piece, as you guys can see. Now, obviously, you don't see this style of wheels very often being sold. So they do make them very unique as far as aesthetic goes. And with this design, they do offer up a lot of stiffness, a level of responsiveness, and just an overall sturdy feel on these wheels. Now, if you are new to Elite Wheel Drive, they are their own supplier, manufacturer, etc., as far as I know, and they do offer up a variety of other wheels. I actually run 2 other sets of wheels from Elite Drive, the Elite Wheels Drive, their 45 variant, as well as their 65 wheels. I mean, they're some of the lightest wheels that I've ever tested on this channel. The retail on these wheels is $1,299 USD. So not the most affordable wheels on the market. However, these days, especially with some of the price gouging that some of the other brands are doing, these are not even the most expensive wheels that I've ever tested on this channel. Next up, let's talk about some of the specs on these wheels. So as far as the rim goes themselves, we have a 50mm depth wheel, both rear and front. The internal width on these is 21mm internal. The external width is 28mm external. And then as far as my tire size goes, I'm rocking Continental GP5000s in the 28C variant, as well as latex tubes, which obviously latex tubes are not going to be as light as TPU, but they do offer up a very good measure of comfort. Now, moving on to the real world weight on these, I measured them in the introductory of my video. These come in at 1,625 grams. So compared to some of the other wheels that I have reviewed on this channel, these are not exactly light, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, and I will talk about why that is the case when we get to the actual out on the road field test on these wheels. Now, some of the other specs on these wheels is we have ceramic bearings, which at this point, when it comes to Chinese wheels and this price point, ceramic bearings is pretty standard. And now that the original design of the DT Swiss star ratchet hub, that patent, as China Joe says, the patent on this has expired or has lapsed. So this is using, which is also another common feature on this price point of wheels, is it is using a star ratchet hub design. I believe it is 36 tooth. I'll show you out in the world, real world, on the ride if I can remember, but the free hub on this is by far the loudest free hub I have ever heard, and I like a loud free hub ratchet noise because it helps alert pedestrians out on the lakefront. However, it borderline is to the point where it is almost too loud, but nonetheless, I'd rather have it too loud than not loud enough. Now, what would be the purpose of having a wheel design such as this VELO 6 design? Now, based on what I can imagine from it is being that it is a one-piece design and you only have 6 carbon bladed spokes, this should offer up a little bit more crosswind stability. And because these blades are so thick, when you are up to speed, whatever that speed might be, it should be able to, I don't want to use the term hold its speed really well, but it should be able to keep its speed and just be comfortable in the straight line based on this design. So basically you're getting, in theory, a lot of aerodynamic benefits for only having a 50mm depth wheel because of this design and because of these 6 bladed spokes. Let's do a quick bike check really quickly. So this is my VELO Attack frame set. I've already reviewed this. I love it. I think it's very solid for the price. We have the $70 3D printed saddle from AliExpress. We have my Far Sports. I think this is their F1S one-piece cockpit. Very stiff as far as the handlebars go, but I love them. I love the fit, the ergonomics. We got a DI2 12 speed with my Magine spider-based power meter, 5339 chain rings in the front, and then in the back we have an 11 to 30 cassette. Now, as far as this oversized pulley wheel system and even the bottom bracket itself, both ceramic, that is courtesy of Nova Ride or Nova 2 Ride. It just makes the whole entire drivetrain extra smooth. And then as far as the chain is a hot wax application courtesy of Cyclowax. Dura Ace disc rotors as well, but just the overall system, very comfortable, very smooth, and very, very efficient. Now, some of the questions I do want to answer based on some of the feedback I've gotten from you guys, the viewers out there. One of them is when it comes to stiffness. Now, being that this is a one-piece design as far as these wheels go, these wheels, they are stiff, they are firm, but they're not jarring. And what I mean by jarring is when you are over rough pavement, and at this point, I've used these wheels in the wintertime, in the springtime with some of the wet and disgusting grime type of roads that Chicago offers during the foul seasons of the year. These wheels, especially paired to the tires and the latex inner tubes, the frame does not get upset or disrupted at all due to bad pavement. And that's something I was very surprised with these wheels, considering just the style and design that they are. You would think that for how stiff they are, that they would be very harsh. But the reality is they're stiff, they're firm, but they are not harsh, and they don't upset the ride quality at all. Now, moving on to crosswind. Now, people wonder, you know, are these wheels going to be terrible in the crosswind? Now, I'll tell you firsthand, I do have some other wheels that cost more than these, particularly my Craft Racing Works CS 5060 wheels. Because they're so light, they're fantastic for acceleration, but they just are not as stable in the crosswind. And for these, I find these to be very stable in the crosswind. And I think there's a couple of reasons as to why that's happening. So number one, because they only offer up 6 bladed spokes, I think that does cut down on a little bit of the crosswind instability. And also another reason too is just simply because of the weight. For these being 1,625 grams, you know, this is probably just physics. Of course, I'm not an engineer, so I can't confirm this to be the case. But because the weight on these are on the heavier side compared to some of the other wheels I've tested on this channel, that does make them to be very stable in the crosswinds just because of the mass of the wheels. And I think that's a good thing. I think if these were a little bit deeper in the wheel depth, I think that might disrupt some of the stability. But as is with the specs on these, very, very stable because of those 2 factors. Now, another question that I've gotten on these is when it comes to responsiveness and just how these sort of ride out in the real world. So being that they are, again, 1,625 grams, they're not responsive in the sense of, because they're just, you know, you can't cheat the physics. These are like 200 to 300 grams heavier than some of the other wheels I've tested on this channel. So if you're trying to be in a sort of either race, if you do race, or fast group ride, or even if you are just climbing up some crazy hills, these are not going to be as responsive as, say, something like an Elite Drive 45 or 50 set of wheels, or maybe like a more shallow depth wind space hyper wheel. But if you live in an area where maybe you're doing just like a solo TT type of effort, maybe even like a long zone 2 ride, or maybe you're just in a group ride where the speeds are really fast but it's a nice steady eddy pace, I think these wheels will be fantastic for the application. So if you live somewhere where it's flat like I do in Chicago, these do make a lot of sense. But if you live anywhere where there's a lot of climbing or rolling terrain, I think at that point these would be a little bit of a novelty of a design. But for the flats, I think they work very, very well. Another question I got was in regards to lateral stiffness. So I'm not an engineer. I don't have any tool or mechanism in order to tangibly measure the lateral stiffness. Usually the way I can sort of feel lateral stiffness is whether or not I get any sort of perceivable brake rub when I'm out of the saddle. And with these, I don't get any of that at all. I do have some other wheels where there is a little bit of brake rub, and again, that could just be because of the fork, whatever the case may be. But when it comes to these wheels, when I'm out of the saddle or putting any measurable power down, I don't get any perceived flex with these wheels, and that is kind of expected considering the design of these wheels. I mean, these carbon bladed spokes are very, very thick. They're very, very aero, and just because of the mass of the wheels, just because of the weight, they do offer up a very firm but extremely controlled ride without any flex as far as I can tell. One thing I do want to talk about is the elephant in the room when it comes to the current state of pricing when it comes to Chinese wheels. So you have brands like Windspace, which Windspace offers up some of my absolute favorite wheels that I've ever tested on this channel. The problem is you're noticing a drastic price increase for some of these Chinese wheels, to the point that it almost just does not make a lot of sense to go with some of these Chinese brands. And so at this price point for $1,299 before any sort of sales or discount, I appreciate that Elite Wheels as a brand, they realized that they know where their place is on the Chinese wheels, or even just wheels in general, the sort of hierarchy or totem pole when it comes to pricing. I think once you start getting into the $1,500 range, the $1,600 range and up, with the exception of the craft racing work wheels, I think you're just asking too much for a typical Western customer. And I think that $1,200 and below price range is the perfect sweet spot where a lot of people can justify the price. They're going to get a lot for the money, and they don't feel like they're overpaying to the point where they might as well just go with one of the Western brands on the market. So huge kudos to Elite Wheels in that regard. I do like the pricing that they offer, and they do offer up various other wheels in their lineup from as low as, I want to say, even like $600 all the way up to this one, which is $1,299 before any sales or discounts. We interrupt today's video to give you guys a glimpse into the brand new Shram Red group set. This thing looks really, really good, and I'm tempted to upgrade one of my Shram builds with this new Shram Red group set. So first, starting off with this brand new Hammerhead. It's brand new for 2024. The battery life on this is much better than the previous one. You should be able to get at least a couple of days out of this, maybe even a week with the new battery life. The next, probably the most important or critical aspect to this new Red group set is the levers. So my understanding is the feel is much better. It's improved. You can basically brake now with just using one finger. The engagement on the rotors and pads is much better as well. It also has these customizable inside buttons, so you can program your menu, shifting, etc. on that. But these things look really, really good. The reach on this is also much better because they're a little bit longer, so keep that in mind as far as your stem length goes. But now when you go to brake, when you're on the hoods, your fingers won't get pinched between the drops and the levers. Then of course we got a little bit lighter of the one-piece chain ring here. This is a Canon Ultimate frame set. We got a redesign as well as for the rear derailleur as well. It does use the same batteries. But yeah, guys, this new Shram Red group set looks fantastic. I'm hoping one day I can get my hands on this group set myself, or at the very least, maybe this new technology will trickle down into the upcoming Shram Force if they do decide to ever release that in the coming years. But yeah, much better brake feel, customizable, programmable buttons, and lighter crankset. lighter rear derailleur, lighter everything, and aesthetically the colors, I much prefer this over the previous Shram Red group set. Now, despite the weight on these bad boys at over 1,600 grams, these are some of the smoothest and sturdiest wheels that I've ever tested on this channel. They just feel extremely planted. They just feel so solid. I'm sure part of that is because of the weight on these, but they just feel so smooth. Like, you just feel like, it kind of reminds me of my Specialized LA Sprint frame, even though that frame is aluminum and it is on the heavier side compared to a carbon frame. These just feel so planted and just sturdy. These just feel so planted and just so sturdy. Like, you feel like you could just barrel over rough pavement. It's very controlled. Nothing on the road will upset the frame or the chassis just because of the way these wheels are set up. And that's where my thoughts were kind of counterintuitive to how I thought this bike would be. I thought it would be very harsh. It would ride like poop, but no, it just feels very planted and very sturdy. So if you only had one set of wheels to buy for the road, I don't think these would be my choice. I think just having a conventional style of frame wheels would make the most sense. But if you do need a second set of wheels, for sure, these make a lot of sense, especially if you live in a flat area. You get ceramic bearings, carbon arrow bladed spokes, 6 fixed spokes, mind you. All of that together, of course, with latex inner tube, but all of that in a complete system just makes these wheels, they just feel so good. It's hard to describe, but once you get at the speed, like I said, that you want to be at, they just glide. They destroy any sort of rough pavement. Just very sturdy and very planted. Now, if you live in an area, or if you are doing a type of ride with constant surging and climbings, I don't think these would be my first or second choice. But for flat terrain, I don't really have anything negative to say about these wheels in that respects. I'm actually kind of surprised that we don't see more of this style of wheels on offer, especially from the Chinese brands. I don't know a lot about triathlons or TTs or stuff like that, or indoor track, but you do see these styles of wheels in those applications. But it would be cool to see more of this style. For myself, I'm just imagining, say you are in some sort of road race or fast group ride scenario, and you decide to attack off the front and just do some sort of a solo TT attack move. I think these would be fantastic for that regard. Now, I don't really do too many races a year, so I don't want to speak on the racers. That really is an opinion or comment for actual proper racers. But if you find yourself solo off the front in any sort of ride, these are going to be the wheels I would have. I think they do kind of help cheat past the idea of having to use a super deep depth set of wheels, being that these are only 50 millimeters in depth. But because of the one-piece design, the thick arrow bladed spokes, that definitely does help with aerodynamics as far as I can tell, and a real world sensation feeling. So that's really it, guys. That's it. $1,300 before sales and discounts, which I think once you factor in the discounts, fantastic deal. These would not be my first option of road wheels, but for a second or third option, for sure. And they're going to be a little bit different, or actually much different than some of the other wheels that you see on the market. If that type of aesthetic is important to you, then these are a no-brainer. They work fantastic on the flats. They're stiff, they are stable in the crosswinds, and they're going to offer up everything you're going to need on flat terrain. And yeah, if you are going to be somewhere climbing or a lot of surging, these aren't going to be that. But for everything else, these ones are A-okay in my book. So that is going to wrap up today's video, guys. Big thank you to Elite Wheels for sending me out these VELO 6 wheels. They're a fantastic value, I think. They are a hoot to ride on the flats, very stable. But as always, guys, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave them down below, and I'm gonna check you guys on the next one. And also to check down below, as I should have a discount code for you guys for the summer. But yeah, that's a wrap for this video, guys. Peace. Why am I so dark?